Welcome back to the Rock and Stream Garden. Last week we looked at more the perennial mixed border side of the garden. This week we're going to take a little bit more closer look at the rock garden side. When I say rock garden, it can mean a lot of things. There are alpine plants to be chosen from. A lot of people, when they just plant anything around a bunch of rocks, they call it a rock garden. There's sometimes when you have a crack and crevice garden like a patio, it can be called a rock garden. So it's a loose term. There's no real botanical or horticultural definition for a true rock garden. But here we have used a lot of alpine plants, plants that like it dry, plants that appreciate the steep hillside that this bottom half of the garden is on. So we'll take a walk around and look at some plants like this Eryngium, which is, you can't see it on camera, I'm sure, but is just full of the tiniest little bee pollinators right now. There's some big bees on this scabiosa in front of me as well. So let's take a walk down the hill and see what we have going on. We are in the full sun area of the garden, and again, all these plants were just planted this spring. We're already starting to see some nice height on this Helianthus, helianthoides, burning hearts. We are just about to get a yellow and red sunflower on top of it, but we really planted it for this purple foliage, which I think goes really well with this Achillea or the yarrow. This one's called Wonderful Wampee. A very subtle pink blush color, looks very nice against the foliage behind it and starts to blend in with some of the other plants we have in this particular area. One of the most fun surprises, a plant I haven't grown ever, not this particular species of it. This is a Triflorum rubens, which you know as a clover. Don't confuse it with the Triflorum repens, because that's the clover that's out in your lawn right now. You wouldn't want to go to the nursery and ask for that. But this one, Triflorum rubens, probably one of the more ornamental purple clovers that you can find right now. I believe this one comes from Europe. So running around my ankles here is another Campanula. This one is Carpatica. We have a cultivar blue chips and white chips. I think you can see that for what they are. In front of me here we have this Lychnis, coronaria. It's really doing what it usually does. This is about all of its show, but we love this great color, the silver foliage, and the height, as you can see it blowing around in the wind with these smaller alpines next to it. All these plants will like this dry, well-drained area, including this small plant in front of me as well is a Lewisia, cotyledon. It's a hybrid, and you can see the flowers that are just going past now. And once again, if we've gotten our drainage right, we'll see a nice spreading of these as a sort of succulent alpine ground cover. Just above that, a plant that is just so much fun, no matter what species you grow. This is Lavandula angustifolia, or a lavender. We all are familiar with the perfume, but these flowers and that silver foliage makes it a really strong border plant as well. And next to that is kind of an oddball, is we have a Thuja plicata whipcord. This is an Arbor Vitae. A lot of us think of it as a giant hedge. This plant won't get any higher than 5 feet. It will keep this weeping effect, and it has these very long leaves with its weeping habit, and gives it that cultivar name of Whipcord. We're really eager to see what this does as it spills over into the stream. So here we are fully in the rock garden section, halfway down our stream toward the Temple of Love, and a pocket where we've embraced the red. And when I say red, I mean red and orange and maybe a little pink and purple to give some nice contrast. Here in front of me, an obvious stunner, I think, is this Lychnis. It's dwarf orange, sometimes known as silene, but I like it mainly just for this foliage. But when you get this red-orange pop of color on top of it, it really is sort of a showstopper. Stepping back just a little bit, we've used a combination of potentilla and geum in reds as well. Again, that same but different style plant with a similar flower and similar flower color. Here on my left, we have a Nadia. This is a cultivar named Mars Midget, so you're seeing about the maximum height of its flowers, and it's more toward a purple red to play around with these oranges. Another Lychnis species with the green foliage, and it'll get about twice the height of the orange dwarf we've already looked at, moving in through some more of the nadia and some more of the Lychnis coronaria, into some pink salvia nemorosa, and a plant that I've been really pleased with as it's been growing is this scabiosa coronaria flutter deep pink. There's a flutter deep blue that we've also used in this garden. I really like what these pinks are doing against these reds and oranges we've been looking at. And then just over my shoulder here is another Lychnis cultivar called Vesuvius, very much like the dwarf orange we just looked at, but it'll get another foot or two taller over time. So here we are in sort of a silly corner, intentionally silly. I've always avoided using red, and we'll talk about red a little bit further, but here in front of me is this Heuchera called Forever Red, so I obviously had to embrace it. And not an obvious combination, but one that's getting lots of smiles so far is it's paired with this ajuga, another foliage plant. It's ajuga repens, Black Scallop. And then here in front of me, speaking of kind of silly and small, is this salvia nemorosa Marcus. It's not going to get much more than 8 or 12 inches, so it'll give us a bit more diameter, but you're not going to see much more height out of this particular plant. So thank you all for taking this virtual walk around the walk-in stream garden with me today. And while I'm thanking people, I have to thank Senator Shelley Mayer for her help in procuring a grant that helped with the hardscape of this particular garden that Glencar Water Gardens was able to execute. I also want to thank Ira Feinberg of the Plant Group Nursery in Franklin, Connecticut. He had donated over 1,500 plants that were planted this spring and made this garden what it is. And also Ira Feinberg and his wife Candy donated this bench in memory of their son Daniel, and I have the privilege of sitting here in this garden on that space now.